Touchdown Tampa Bay, you're listening to the Pewtercast.
Welcome to the Pewtercast. This is the actual Pewtercast, you know, the one where we talk about the Bucs. If you've been following this feed for a while, you know that we have another show we've been doing, Showtime with the Apollos. It's all about the new Alliance of American Football League team. But this is not that. This is the Pewtercast. I am Brent Allen, your host, and with me, as always, is Ren, the mock draft machine, Daxed. Ren, how's it going today, buddy?
I might have done one or two mock drafts on the Draft Network. I mean, you know, I wouldn't say it's a problem yet. I mean, I can quit whenever I want.
Yeah.
So
the first step is admitting there's a problem there, Ren.
I don't have a problem.
Yes.
That's, you know, I wish I could admit there's a problem, but when there's not a problem, there's not a problem.
You know, they're just down the road from you. I know there is a local meeting of MDA, Mock Draft Anonymous. You know, and you can, you know, it's okay, Ren. It's okay. Addiction is a disease.
It's draft season, and the guys at the Draft Network have put out their mock draft machine, and it's slick, and it's sexy, and it works, and it's also very educational, and it's a lot of fun. And once you do your first full 7 rounds, you just kind of want to do it again to sort of just tweak it a little, improve a little bit, like. And then what happens is, like, maybe like round 4. Like, I know I could pick a better person at round 4. But when you do it again, by the time you get to round 4, one of your first 3 picks have changed. Because it's always changing. It's always evolving. And it's like, So now you got your guy for round 4 that you like, but now maybe you think, well, I messed up in round 3 and I messed up in round 7. So you got to do another one.
Yeah, Ren, so that meeting is at 7:30 on Thursday nights.
Don't need a meeting.
It's right down the road.
It's normal obsession.
All right, guys. Well, listen.
Can't anybody just be passionate about anything without being addicted to it?
No, you cannot. That's why that's why we have podcasts. Hey, listen, on today's show, speaking of podcasts, we're going to welcome back one of the creators of this mock draft machine, Ben Solak from thedraftnetwork.com. He is going to be here to talk with us about this mock draft machine a little bit, but also mostly to kind of clue us in as Bucs fans what we are going to be looking for, not just in the draft, but this week as the Combine is happening in Indianapolis. And then we're going to get to some of the news that has been coming out about the Buccaneers really here over the last 2 weeks. Now, all of it, though, Ren, as it seems, was addressed by Jason Light and Bruce Arians earlier today in their interviews at the Combine. So we're going to couch that discussion kind of in terms of what those interviews said. And so we'll make sure that we touch on all of those topics. And then to close out the show, we've got a backlog of some emails that we're going to get to. I promise you we're actually going to do that this week. Guys, all of that is coming your way on today's episode of The Pewtercast. All right, Ren, well, first up on the show, we've got Ben Solak from thedraftnetwork.com. And boy, was this a fun interview we just got to have.
Yeah, you know, with the news coming out from the presser, which we're going to talk about basically Jason Light said Quan Alexander is going to test the free agency market. Now there's hints that Kendall Beckwith, ankle injury, he may not be ready this season. It may even be a career-threatening injury. Last year's draft pick, Jack Sitchie, he blew his ACL out. So
his other ACL out? Because he was injured on one in college, and now he blew out his other one.
So there's not a lot of guys under contract, healthy linebackers. So it has become a real need for a linebacker spot, and everyone seems to be talking about Devin White from LSU. But what if we don't get him? Mm-hmm. So we brought Ben on, and besides being a wealth of knowledge, which you will hear right away, you can tell, I took 3 positions. I took linebacker, I took offensive line, and I took cornerback. And I took out the big ones, like all the ones Buccaneers Twitter's talking about. Mm-hmm. Give us some other names that we can watch at the Combine. And, as always, he was on it. This guy, he's like a machine. He needs no prep. Like, mm-hmm. I want you to talk about cornerbacks, but you can't talk about Byron Murphy. You can't talk about DeAndre Baker. You can't talk about Greedy Williams. Go.
No problem.
Yeah. And
here's 20 minutes. So,
right. Like you said, it was a lot of fun. It was a great interview, and it's at the perfect timing because when this comes out, that'll be the day, the Combine starts, and Bucs fans can sort of watch these guys that Ben has earmarked for us as possibly being targets for Buccaneers.
All right. Well, Ren, with that, why don't we go ahead and jump into today's interview with Ben Solak from thedraftnetwork.com.
Well, speaking of live streams, why don't you tell us what, you and the Draft Network guys, what do you call them, the Chiefs, have in store for us coming this week at the NFL Combine?
Yeah, no, so we're here for the entire week, which is a ton of fun. Talking to you guys now at the end of Wednesday, which is the first day, it's just coaches. Most of the coaches have their availability, so we haven't much talked to players yet or anything like that. But we did get the first round of measurements, so that's nice, that's helpful. And so what we'll be doing for the entire week is you'll be seeing a ton of written content on thedraftnetwork.com. Obviously, hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, sweet. I was just hearing some feedback. I wasn't sure if you were losing me. So, yeah, we've got a ton of written content already up on the site. All of the coaches and general managers who've spoken, we've already got some of those notes distilled and some targets that fit the prototypes that those coaches and those general managers have shared. As the players perform, you'll be able to see our instant reaction notes to their testing and to their measurables. And we'll be going live every night on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/The Draft Network. If you follow us on Twitter or you follow us on Twitch, you'll get notifications for that as well. And that's where we get to take a bunch of questions. We'll play with the new mock draft machine. We'll have a ton of fun.
Yeah, I've been jumping in on some of your Twitch things, and I think that's going really well. I thought it was real smart of you guys to go ahead and jump on that platform. But speaking of smart things, we got to talk about this mock draft machine that just dropped a couple of days ago. Holy cow! It's like my Twitter feed is it's everything. Like all fans everywhere. I keep seeing people, hey, I did my first mock draft from, I'm seeing 49ers fans, Giants fans, Seahawks fans. Is this thing like exploded, and is it gone past sort of what you guys were expecting?
Yeah, no, it's beyond what we were expecting. And man, I mean, when we were working with our developers, we were talking about making sure that it gets stress test to the max because we think there's going to be a lot of folks on this thing. And we were right, but we undershot even our wildest expectations, which is so cool. Listen, the mock draft machine is objectively just a ton of fun. It's a great tool to use. It's a blast. But also it definitely helps you understand things about the class, how the draft might play out. The simulations are always different, so there's always kind of a unique, fresh look. And then for those people who don't know a ton about, the draft and the players, well, who's my team going to target in the third round? Well, when you get to the third round, you're going to see their primary needs listed. You're going to see the top players available at that need, and you can click on those players and you can get their slide outs with have their scouting reports and their basic information. So it's a great way to learn more about the players who might be available for your team. Guys, your team might end up being picked. So it's a great education tool, and it's also an absolute blast. We're so happy with how it came out. We're still finicking with it because we can't be happy with it. We can't be satisfied, but it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's slick. It's easy to use. And like you said, if there's any player there that you're like, okay, I know my team needs a cornerback. I'm in round 5. Hey, I don't do this for a living. I don't know a lot of round 5 quarterbacks. You just click on their name and like you said, there's a breakdown of all their strengths, weaknesses, pros, cons. And a lot of times there's even more than one of you guys that has broken the player down, which is really great. I know today from what I saw on Twitter that all the I always say this word wrong. Brent, help me out. Compensatory. Picks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Picks are on there. So you could do that today. But I heard a rumor, or maybe I just dreamed it, that soon, or there are plans, I should say, to be able to use trades or get trades in there. Is that coming to us soon, or on the forefront somewhere?
Yeah, soon is not the word I would use, I'm afraid. And the simple reality of it is, while trades would make things more realistic, the onus it puts on the machine is tremendous. I mean, just the ability to get an order in there correctly and get all the teams picking as you expect them to is a bear in and of itself. You start moving around picks. It's just a huge undertaking that we weren't sure we'd be able to have ready in a good format in a way that we liked, by the time this draft was going to roll around. I mean, determining the feasibility of trades, the likelihood of a team making one when you suggest one, is an absolute monster on the back end of the site in terms of the logic that goes behind it. It's something we have circled, man. Trades obviously would make the machine come to a whole new level. But at this point, for the education that it provides, we're happy with what we've got. Trades are down the road, but not going to be for this draft cycle.
Yeah, Ben, you talk about that, and I may over-exaggerate when I talk about a detestation of mock drafts, but that's a big reason why, because there's always, in the real draft, there's always unpredictable trades, right? And it seems like nobody can accurately predict, like, what those trades are going to be, and that's I know that you just said you've got it circled on your your board of stuff you want to do, and it's not coming soon, but that becomes part of the to me, I think, the whole equation. But I got to tell you, it's fun. I was poking around it the other night, and I was, and the reason for that was, well, one, I just wanted to check out what you guys were doing, and I've heard so much about this even when it was still in its inception phase, but a big piece of it is because I don't follow college football enough to know who all of these guys are. So it really is what you said, sort of that education piece of going, okay, kind of getting to know that person. I hear names because I'm in Connected. There's names that people keep throwing out about who they like. So I can pull those names and say, okay, let me find out about that person. Let me find out about that person, and so you guys do that work for me, which I very much appreciate a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Brent, everyone appreciates it. And as you know, as you've seen about how many people in mock drafts have been saved on that site. But let's get into why you're here on the pod tonight. You're, one of the draft experts. You guys are blowing up. Everyone is, I feel, at least personally, everyone on the staff, the four chiefs, you and Brad are quickly rising as far as fans trust to go for their opinions. So for time's sake, I've whittled this down to 3 positions that I think the Bucs are going to address in the draft. Now, I'm going to start with linebacker. Now, all Bucs fans have been talking about Devin White, linebacker out of LSU. He might not be there at 5. The Bucs might not stay at 5. They might trade down. Now, if the Bucs go for a linebacker, I feel, following Bucs Twitter, they're not really talking about anybody else. It's like the Bucs are getting Devin White or bust. Like, there's no other linebackers going out there. So with the combine coming up and the Bucs fans hear this, give us like 3 names after, the number 1 guy that Bucs fans can watch in the combine and self-scout that, that might warrant a draft pick for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, it's real tricky. I mean, you identify what I would call the weakest position in the class. Maybe besides quarterback's kind of always like an exception, but other than quarterback, we're looking at linebacker is really the weakest of the class. Devin White is generally viewed as one of the top guys. He probably wouldn't be my top guy because even though he's being billed as a first rounder, there are processing concerns. He's a bit more of a project, a guy you need to bring along. He does a lot of things that Quan Alexander did when Quan was, a younger player, and he was really athletic and had great explosiveness, but kind of had to learn how to see it and how to react to it a little bit smarter at the NFL level. So besides White, you're really not looking. The only other potential first-round linebacker might be Mac Wilson out of Alabama. He's a smaller guy, not as big as White. Fantastic quickness as well. This is a guy who wins in coverage, not so much in the running game, so he's not much of a hitter. He's not going to be a guy who takes on blocks with great physicality and blows up plays by like knocking a guard back on his socks, nothing like that. But he's a great coverage backer, and that's not something you find a ton at the college level. It's really impressive, some of the stuff that he does when he's dropping into short zones. That translates to the NFL. So Wilson's a guy you like a lot. The only other name that really carries a lot of early round clout is Devin Bush out of Michigan. Now, this is I like to call him a running back playing linebacker, super undersized. We're going to get an official measurement on him, obviously, this week at the Combine. We'll get a feel for how much bigger he's become, but he probably played south of 230. Real small guy. Now, real flexible, great body control, takes really nice angles, and comes with physicality. He'll bring the thunder a little bit. He doesn't have the ideal size. Coverage plays, he's got some good instincts dropping into coverage. It's not really super refined yet. So he's a guy, if you're going to bring him on, you have to have a Deion Jones sort of plan for him, the way that Atlanta did. Like, they build their defense to protect these undersized linebackers. So he's a tricky fit in terms of what you might want. And then the last guy you could potentially look at would be maybe a Joe Giles Harris out of Duke, Jermaine Pratt out of NC State is a converted safety that a lot of people like. Terrell Hanks is this 240-pound chiseled dude out of New Mexico State, real small school guy, but he's got that Darius Leonard sort of a build to him. So if you want that Tampa 2 defender with a ton of length and coverage, Hanks is going to be a guy that you look at. So there are some middle round names in that regard, but really the linebacker class is a weak one, which is why it makes sense for Tampa. Probably a big linebacker need. If they want to get a starter, they're going to have to spend a top pick on him because there's very few starters available in this class.
All right, good to know. I agree with you. It seems I haven't seen anything but I've heard a little bit about Mack and of course Bush at Michigan, but all those other guys that you talked about are all new names to me, and it makes sense for you saying that it's a weak linebacker class. All right. Same scenario. We're going the Bucs, offensive line, interior offensive line. It looks really like Donovan Smith is coming back. I know Jason Light almost has said so today on the radio, not necessarily at the podium. But also, we got the opposite side, right guard, the right tackle's aging, Demir Dotson. I'm taking out Jawan Taylor. I think all Bucs fans know who he is, and I'm taking out Jonah Williams. Give me some guys at the Bucs and look at those two positions they can watch during this week Combine coverage.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking offensive tackles, I think we've gone from one of the weaker classes here now to one of the strongest. The offensive tackle class is exciting. The Williams and Taylor, if we're taking them out, the one real top name, in my opinion, a potential top 10 pick remaining is Cody Ford. That's the behemoth out of Alabama. 6'4", came in just a shade under 330 pounds, 34-inch arms. Dude's an absolute monster. He's stacked, super wide hips, super wide shoulders, but he's light. He really has some nice, good mirror match footwork on the outside for a guy of his size. Now, the Big 12, Oklahoma, that's a lot of vertical pass sets. And you imagine the Bruce Arians offense, he's not going to have the same quick release, the same ball coming out immediately sort of effect that he often had in Oklahoma. And so he's going to have to take more 45-degree sets, be more physical by the second step of his kick slide, and kind of bring the fight to people instead of sitting back on his vertical sets. He can do that. You've seen that on tape. It's not the primary thing he did, but he does have that in his repertoire. So you have to make sure you like him taking that set predominantly. So Cody Ford is a huge name to circle for offensive tackles. Beyond that, there are other guys who are more so back into the first round, top of the second round guys at offensive tackle. Two to circle there. That's Dalton Reisner out of Kansas State, a Senior Bowl player, real mean streak, real nasty, ton of versatility, cross-trained at center, started at guard early at Kansas State. So he's a guy who can play 4, maybe 5 different positions for you. And he's a right tackle, same with Cody Ford, by alignment at college. So you're just plugging and playing him in on the same side. That's really nice. Yadni Kajust is the left tackle out of West Virginia, another Big 12 product. And so you're asking yourself about what his kick slide looks like. Can he really translate to the sets that Bruce Arians needs? But he's got ideal length, ideal foot speed. Balance is a bit of a question mark. That's what's going to push him into round 2. You need to make sure he's enough of a natural athlete. He doesn't have a lot of bad weight on him, and make sure that he's going to be a guy who you can teach him up his technique a little better in his kick slide, keep him balanced, keep him a little bit more patient, but he's got all the tools. And again, all 3 of these guys, ideal arm length, ideal size. They all came in with fantastic measurables, worthy of top 50 selections. So those are my offensive tackles. On the interior, not as strong of a class, but it's still going to be good. Do you have any names you want me to get rid of, or do you just want to hear the top guys?
Yeah, let's go with the top guys. because I feel like the interior line are these interior guys going to be all like first rounders, or are they going to be, because they're projected as guards / centers, are they going to be more sort of like in the second, third round?
No, there's two guys that I could see easily being early picks on the interior right now. That's Chris Lindstrom out of Boston College, right guard, and then Garrett Bradbury, the center out of NC State. Those are the two big names that you've heard. Now, Bradbury's a real small character, very heavy on the zone style of runs, right? He's got a great movement profile to him. So I don't know if he fits what Tampa's really going to like that much. It depends on how they want to deploy that running game with Ronald Jones back there. Chris Lindstrom, also good mobility, but he brings better power to the position. He also has starting experience at tackle previously with the Golden Eagles. He's a guy who I really, really like as that potential first-round grade. He's going to be like a top 15, top 20 player for me. Super well-rounded, just very steady, exactly what you want in your starting guard. You put him there, and then you forget about him because he doesn't cause you any problems. The guys you're looking at a little bit later will be Elkton Jenkins out of Mississippi State. Elton is a guy who came in with fantastic measurables. He's got tackle-like size, but played center for the Bulldogs for a couple of years. And again, not unlike Lindstrom, he doesn't really overwhelm you with physical traits. He doesn't really overwhelm you with his technique. He's not a guy like a Quentin Nelson, or Will Hernandez, or even Brandon Scherf from a few years ago, who just had like a dominant trait. But they're so Eddie steady. And Elton is a really good in recovery at the pivot. At the center, you need to be able to recover when you give that snap. You lose hand positioning right away when you snap the football. So you have to be able to recover with your hands. That's something he does really well at a technically proficient level. So he's a guy I like a little bit in the later rounds as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the rock, steady Eddie guys on the interior. One, like you said, you just put them there and you sort of forget about them. And then two, when they come up for free agency, you can keep them without breaking the bank. At least that's
right.
That's my plan as a GM, because, I'm going to have that job one day. No. Last position, we'll let you go, Ben. Cornerback. The Bucs, Jason Light came out today and said last year's draft pick, who they tried to fit into the nickel or the dime, or slot position, was MJ Stewart. Jason Light came out to say they're moving him to safety, and that pretty much just leaves Carlton Davis and Vernon Hargreaves, who's coming off an injury, as like their corners. Then they have some guys they picked up last year, but nothing real promising. Right. I'm taking out Byron Murphy, and these are the big three, at least in Buccaneers Twitter. I know a lot of people are up and down on a couple of these guys, but as far as Bucs Twitter goes, everyone's talking about Byron Murphy, DeAndre Baker out of Georgia, Byron Murphy out of Washington, obviously, and Greedy Williams out of LSU. Give me some names that Buccaneers fans should watch during the Combine that the Buccaneers might like coming out of the draft.
Right. Let me ask you this. Are they going to be looking more so for an outside guy or for a nickel corner? What do you think?
Yeah. I think the biggest need is nickel, but I don't trust either of the outside guys. So
I've got free reign pretty much?
I'm sorry?
Hey,
so I've got free reign to pick.
Ben, here's the thing.
Yes, you do.
Here's the thing. One of our main outside guys in Vernon Hargreaves also can move inside to the nickel. So if there's a better nickel, then we keep Vernon Hargreaves outside where they actually prefer him. That's where they start him. However, if there's a better outside guy, then we slot Vernon over into the nickel and we bring in the other outside guy. So it's really kind of you're
free to pick, my friend.
Yeah, and whichever one's best. So,
no, for sure, and that's nice because then we can talk about guys who also bring that same inside-outside versatility. My first name is Julian Love out of Notre Dame, and he's a player who's a 5'11", 185, 190-pound type who's got the transitional quickness that you like to see to be able to play in the slot. And he doesn't have overwhelming physical traits. His long speed probably isn't great, and so you want him sitting in a zone style of coverage, which you can definitely get on the interior, operating a hook curl zone, a curl flat zone, in cover free. He's got really good ball skills, especially when his eyes are on the football in zone drops. And so Love, he's not going to have a fantastic combine. He's probably going to have steady, like average numbers. But that's really fine for a guy of his technical proficiency who can also make really nice plays on the football. Julian Love out of Notre Dame is one. If we're looking exclusively on the outside, it's Amani Oruwariye, who's a corner out of Penn State. This is a guy with ideal length. He's got, again, really nice ball skills. He struggles sometimes to turn his head when he's in the press and get his head back and locate the football. But if he's got eyes on it, he's really, really good. And that footwork at the line of scrimmage, the use of his hands at the line of scrimmage when he's in the press, really, really nice to see. And Carlton Davis out of Auburn was a player who I thought had good press coverage technique coming out. Warrior also for the college level has some really nice press technique. You can tell it's something, even as a one-year starter for Penn State, it's something that he's given time and attention to. So he fits that mold. He can also drop into a cover 3 zone as well. That protects him a little bit more for the receivers who are really much, much, much bigger than him. He's got good size, but it's not going to be amazing. The last name I'll give you will be a pure nickel, and that's Montre Hardage at a Northwestern. He's going to run a slow 40. He's going to come in a little bit light. We acknowledge that for the combine. But when it comes to the 3-cone, as a short shuttle, the change of direction drills, which really measure how open the hips are for a corner, how fluid of a change of direction they have, which is a crucial, crucial trait for corners. Montre Hardage is going to be one of the top testers in the class. Really oily hips, really nice ability to flip his hips. You saw it against Notre Dame. You saw it against Michigan. Ability to mirror down the field is not something that a lot of corners have, and he has it. Now, a lot of the ancillary stuff he's shaky on. He's not going to be a round 2 selection. Round 3, round 4 is more his wheelhouse. Doesn't like to come up and tackle that much. Will affect the catch point, but doesn't have great length. Explosiveness closing downhill out of zone. It's good, but it's not great. So there's some gaps in his game. He's not necessarily going to make a round 2, round 3 pick, but as far as a pure nickel, he's going to be one of the best guys that you find in the class to just slot in on the inside.
Ben, you're the best, man. It's like you're like Google for players. Just type it in and boom, there it is. It comes at you fast.
Ben, I got one.
This is why I like coming on the podcast. Y'all make me feel good.
There you go, Ben. I got one question for you.
Sure.
And we'll let you go here. So a couple of years ago, the Buccaneers drafted O.J. Howard when we did not need a tight end. He fell to us at 19.
Yep.
Last year, even though we wound up trading down and we picked Vita Vea, the word on the street is that had Saquon Barkley, Quentin Nelson, or Bradley Chubb been at number 7, we would not have moved. We would have taken that guy. The Buccaneers are picking at 5 this year. Who, outside of quarterback, that's the one position I'll nix for you, but who are the people in this draft, the 1, 2, maybe 3 guys, that if they fall to the Buccaneers don't say no to? They take that guy no matter where they are, or who they are, or what position they play. Like who are those guys this year for the Buccaneers, you think?
Right. At 5, it's a tricky concept because really there are only, the 4 picks that come before it. Mm-hmm. You don't anticipate a guy like Nick Bosa falling. You would obviously say that name, but I really think there's no chance. Mm-hmm. Now, if Gerald McCoy does leave, if he is a guy who gets cut and he leaves to go to another team, then Quinnen Williams is the answer to that. Quinnen Williams is, for me, the top prospect in the class, my number 1 overall player. Incredible interior defensive lineman, young player out of Alabama. Right now, it's tough to find exactly where he's going to land because there aren't a lot of top teams in the top 6, top 7 who have huge, pressing, big needs at interior defensive line. If Tampa loses McCoy, they suddenly generate that big need, and he slots into 5 as a home run pick. If you're assuming Bosa and Quinnen are off the board, which are the safest bets that we have right now at this juncture, then it's Josh Allen, the Kentucky edge, a guy a lot of people expect to go number 2, number 3, number 4 overall. I would say he's the guy who Tampa obviously still needs edge rushers. They don't have a great pass rush. Allen is going to be a fantastic athlete, had incredible growth from 2017 to 2018, prototypical size. Hey, that 3-4, the ability to rush and then to drop and then to cover, so on and so forth. That's Allen in spades. A lot of people like to comp him to Chandler Jones, so obviously that makes sense for Todd Bowles. I don't really like that comp, but in terms of a 3-4 outside linebacker who can do a lot of things for you and is still an elite rusher, you can understand why Allen and Chandler is a comp that gets made. And so Josh Allen, the Kentucky edge, would really be the name I would circle for that. But where Tampa is at 5, it's like a fall really isn't something you anticipate or you see happening just because the distance from 1 to 5 isn't that big.
Mm-hmm.
On it again. Ben, love the site, love the mock draft machine. I've actually gotten in trouble a couple of times with my girl. She rolls over in the middle of the night and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I almost feel like I just can't say I'm doing another mock. Like I have to make something up. So why don't you tell everybody, where you're at there on the interweb, and talk about anything. I know you talked about at the beginning, but anything else you want to finish out what you're doing this week, the Combine, yourself, and with the Draft Network.
No, of course, man. I mean, Draft Network is on Twitter at Draft Network LLC. It's thedraftnetwork.com. And I'm on Twitter at Benjamin Solak. That's Solak. Man, it's just a week full of coverage. Everything that happens, we're going to talk about it. We'll have the results for you, the time to drills and who did well, who did poorly, and why it all matters. There's going to be a ton of written content on the site, live shows every night, and as always, there's going to be the Build Your Own Big Board and the mock draft interfaces on the new site as well. We're really excited about all that stuff. It's going to be a fun week.
All right, that was Ben Solak of the draftnetwork.com. And boy, Ren, you talked about a wealth of knowledge. That's what he just dropped on us, man.
Yeah, I told you guys at the top, these are going to be some guys that the Bucs may earmark, and like you said, wealth of knowledge. Mm-hmm. I called them a machine. It's just I called him in the interview like Google, like just he's it's something else. It's something else to talk to him, man. And he can. You have a question about anybody in the draft, like he's got your answer for you.
And the good news is this is a recording, so all you got to do is just press that little back button. You can go back and hear maybe a name or two you might have missed, and compare that with some of the things that you guys are seeing come out of the Combine this weekend. But Ren, it is time for us to get to some of your emails. Listeners, you guys have been sending them in, and it's about dang time, Ren, that we come back and we get into some of these. Always love getting to talk with our fellow fans out there. Now, we'll structure this kind of like we normally do an email segment, which means we go over and we take a look at our iTunes reviews first. We do like to get to those. We don't have any new reviews, Ren, but we do have several new ratings. You can actually leave a rating without leaving a review. So we have several new ratings. So thank you to those of you who have sent in those ratings. We very much appreciate that. Reviews are also welcome. And if you guys would like to do that, if you haven't sent in a review yet, all you have to do is go over to iTunes, go over to ratings and review. You can leave us a rating. You can leave us a review. We always appreciate the 5-star kind, but we'll read whichever ones you put out there, and we'll make sure that we see that, and we'll get that on a future episode of the Pewtercast. And what that does is basically it just helps it helps the algorithms when people are searching for podcasts about Buccaneers. There's a lot of them out there these days, and it just helps push us towards the top and shares the love, so to speak, helps the show to grow. All right, Ren, with that, also quick shout out, Ren, we got a new Patreon subscriber this week.
Nice.
Our friend Dan is now in there. So hello to Dan. Thank you so much for supporting the show, and to all of our existing patrons. You guys are awesome, and you really help keep the lights on and keep things going right here with the Pewtercast. So we very much appreciate you guys. If you want to find out more about how you can get involved with supporting the show, just go over to patreon.com/the Pewtercast. Would love to have your support over there and join the growing community that is happening over there. All right, Ren, let's get to some emails. Why don't we?
Yeah, man. Long time.
Yeah. All right. First one coming to us from Harry. And he says, hey, guys, I called a few weeks ago back when Bruce got hired and talked on the show. This was probably our instant cast after Bruce Arians got hired. He said, I was the guy that called over 20 times. I had one quick question. Why didn't the Bucs pursue Robert Alford? He's a pretty decent corner, and the Cardinals got him for less than $8 million a year. I'm just wondering if you guys thought we should have pursued him, or if we are going to go after any other corners in the free agency. Thanks, guys. Harry.
Harry, I don't know why they didn't go after Robert Alford.
Well, to be fair, Ren, you don't know that they didn't go after Robert Alford.
This is true as well. With today's news, and we've talked about it like last episode a little bit, and today being Tuesday, the first day of the Combine, with MJ Stewart, at least starting camp back at safety, cornerbacks, the Bucs are going to need some cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I expect it to be addressed in both free agency and the draft. So that's where we are with that.
Right.
If someone's going to ask me about a certain player, like why didn't we go after this guy, why didn't we go after that guy? Like you said, Brent, like I don't know, we didn't, and that's not sort of our forte here. We're going to do a free agency show. Pretty soon, closer to free agency, we do some research and guys we like, and maybe guys we'll go after, and that's when this sort of information will come out. Based on what we think, the Bucs need. But besides that, it's sort of a lame answer, but I'm giving you a shoulder shrug and like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, that's kind of the position I think that we generally take around the show is just because the Buccaneers don't get somebody, unless they come out and say, we're not pursuing so-and-so, like they came out earlier today and said, we're not pursuing Antonio Brown.
Right.
We don't know that they didn't pursue them. They just didn't get them. Now, they might not have pursued them, but they might have. They might have just kicked the tires and said, he's too expensive. Or, no, maybe they did some film review and said, we don't see it for this guy. Maybe his release and moving into free agency came before they were ready with the new coaching staff, before they could do their review of everything. So there's a lot of reasons I think that could go into why they might not have, but to say that they didn't, I think is harsh. Now, should they have gone after him? I think is the heart of your question there, Harry. And I don't know. I'm not a talent evaluator. So I don't know how much stock they placed in him. Here's what I know about him, just a quick search of him. He played for the Cardinals for 6 seasons, was their starting cornerback for 4 of the last 6.
Falcons.
For the Falcons. Who'd I say?
Cardinals.
The Cardinals. I mean the Falcons. And then they released him, and the Cardinals snatched him up for $22.5 million. So, I don't know why the Falcons released him. The Cardinals obviously saw something in him to give him a contract that, was not outrageously expensive, but it's nothing to laugh at. I mean, it's $22.5 million over 3 years. I wouldn't mind that paycheck. So I don't know. We'll see. But thank you for sending that in, Harry, and please keep sending those in. And be on the lookout for more instant casts where we open up the phone lines. Those will happen periodically throughout the offseason, and certainly as we get into the season again, we will have the instant cast back Sunday nights, 10 o'clock, where we'll be taking your phone calls just about all season long. All right, next email comes in to us from somebody named Wash.
I wonder if he's a Firefly fan.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Do you know who Wash is?
I have no idea.
From Firefly? You know who Firefly is?
I know what Firefly is. I never watched it, though. I should. It's only like a season long.
Yeah, it's like 13 episodes.
Yeah, I think I made it like 13 minutes into the first episode.
Yeah,
it's on my like perennial list of I should watch that someday shows.
Yeah, we're not friends anymore.
All right, folks. Well, this will be the final episode of the Pewtercast.
Anyway, Wash is Alan Tudyk's character. He's the pilot.
Okay.
And they call him Wash.
All right. There you go. Well, maybe this is Alan Tudyk. He says, hey, what do you guys think about having Ronald Jones as the starter in training camp and preseason and moving Peyton Barber back to the third down back since we know that he can catch? Any thoughts on this? Thanks.
Well, Alan, love your work. Big fan. No. I understand where you're going with this. What you're saying is like, hey, if Rojo is having trouble catching, then just don't make him the third down back. Just give him the ball on first and second down and sort of swap him and Barber. Mm-hmm. Sounds good in theory, but what if Barber's also a better first and second down back? So it's all that is going to work out during training camp. We talked about a little bit last episode how Jason Light and Bruce Arians talked about Ronald Jones during their interviews at the Combine, but it wasn't like, hey, wait till you see Ronald Jones this year. It was like we like Ronald Jones, but like we want to see really what we have.
Right.
It's like buying a Ferrari and your mom drives it. No, well, let's put it this way. It's like buying a Ferrari and your mom drives it and she takes like a test lap and, it's like the worst time ever recorded. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wait a minute. How about we get
she did it at rush hour.
Yeah. Let's try this again.
Right.
So this, and then somebody like a professional driver gets in there and sets like a record where you kind of thought where it was going to be, or a time where you thought it was going to be. And that's kind of how I feel about Rojo. It's like, it's almost his first year was a wash.
Mm-hmm. I see what you did there.
Yeah, thanks.
A real producer would have like a rim shot sound effect. He could just push a button and.
Okay, we'll work on that. But yeah, it was almost like a throwaway year, a red shirt year, if you will. An IR year for him, and the coaching staff. No one's given up on Ronald Jones. They're just really not sure what they have. So, we shall see. Hopefully, you, me, Bucs fans, sky's the limit. You watch his college tape, and you're wondering how could someone go from that to that in like a span of like 4 months. It's a wait and see, but I think what Ronald Jones does or does not become is going to be a huge story going through like OTAs and training camp.
Yeah. And boy, Ren, you talk about this. I was just talking about a little bit in the last segment. I feel this way about so many players on the Bucs roster. Mm-hmm. Ronald Jones is one of them. I don't feel like we know what we have in this particular player. Like, I don't know if it's time to jettison them or not, because I don't feel like we know them well enough. So, and Ronald Jones is certainly, I think, one of the top people in that list. So I'm excited to see what they can do with him. I know that when we drafted Ronald Jones last year, everybody was excited.
Yeah.
We were excited for what this kid could be. And, I think my thought was, he'll come in. This will be Peyton Barber's year. Probably at some point during the year, this kid will eclipse Peyton Barber. Maybe not at the beginning, but, game 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there, he'll eclipse Peyton Barber, become the starter, and this will be the guy that we have going forward for the next couple of years. I think that was the idea anyway that I had with him. Mm-hmm. And boy, did that not happen last year. So,
well, there was a lot of boys that did not happen last year. There's a lot of
boys that did not happen the last couple of years. But that's, and that reason alone, though, you still have to look at what happened last year, or rather, what didn't happen with Ronald Jones. And I'm not going to take that and automatically assign that first down back status. Because effectively, your first and second down running back is your starting running back. And he just hasn't shown us that yet. So, all right. So that is it. Wash, thank you so much for your email. Please continue to email back in. Our next email comes in to us from our buddy Chris. It comes in after our Love 'Em and Leave 'Em episode. And he says, "What's up, Pewter guys? I hope you guys are having a great offseason, and congrats on the Orlando Apollos coverage." Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Listening to the last podcast about keeping them or tossing them in the garbage, you brought up a lot of interesting points. Number one, Donovan Smith is going to get paid. That is established. But should that be with the Bucs? He started 64 out of 64 games, which is a great attribute, but not so great attribute is his consistency. I'm not sure which game it was, possibly Dallas or the Saints, where the Bucs had to score and Smith gave up 2 sacks in a row. That doesn't fly with Arians. He damn near cut Ted Larson for a false start on a game with a game on the line, and the only reason he didn't was because the DL provoked it by simulating the snap cadence, which is true. You can find that in his in the All or Nothing show there on Amazon Prime. If this coaching staff truly is if this coaching staff truly is as great as we think they are, then why not draft a left tackle and develop him at a cheaper price for the next 4 or 5 years, depending on where he's drafted? My point being, no one on this team is irreplaceable.
All right. Well, we've talked about earlier. It came out today that, basically come hell or high water, Donovan Smith is going to be on the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. So we have that. Number 2, would have Bruce Arians really have cut him? Or is it something he just said?
Have you watched that Amazon Prime show?
No, but I've heard the story a few times now.
Yeah, he really looked like he was going to cut him. And, oh, by the way, he really did cut somebody for parking in the wrong parking spot.
Yeah, who did he cut?
I mean, it was like a nacho kind of guy.
Exactly.
Bottom of the roster guy.
Exactly.
But
but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, I don't know if Arians
you can get mad that he jumps off sides.
Yeah.
You can get mad he jumps off sides, and in the moment, you're like, and then he doesn't end up being the one who caused the penalty. Mm-hmm. Then it's real easy to say next day in film room, and film was like, man, you're lucky. You're just about to pack your bag.
About to pack, yeah.
It's like, okay. So that's number 2. And I'm not trying to say Bruce Arians is like a liar or like you said, a blowhard, or he doesn't mean what he said. I'm just saying like, it's a nice, easy motivational factor, mm-hmm. To take, and you can say it in front of the whole team. We're like, this guy jumped off sides or false started, at a real crucial point, and he almost got kicked out of here. Let that be a lesson to all you guys, And third, which is something we've said forever, replace him with who? And you said, mm-hmm. like, draft a guy this year. Honestly, I don't think there's anybody who's better than Donovan Smith in the draft right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I understand he's expensive. Once again, I'll go back to Jason Light and Mike Greenberg know what they're doing. If they're going to sign him to the franchise tag or sign him to an extension, a long-term deal, they'll figure out the cap. They have to. Like, they'll be below the cap. Come hell or high water, they'll be below the cap.
Yeah,
and they've done a good. They've done a good job thus far as managing the cap and keeping the players they wanted to keep and signing them at a fair price and not overpaying for them. So, I trust them. And if I understand that it irks you that Donovan Smith is going to make $14 million. Next year, or get a long-term contract at somewhere around 11, 12, maybe even $13 million a year. I get that, but that's the market price. And that's, like I said, when we talked about the level, it's the perfect storm for him, man. Mm-hmm. He's just going to get paid, and you might as well pay him here because there's nobody in free agency better than him. And you draft a tackle. I don't really think there's a better left tackle out there. Now, you can argue this Juwan Taylor from Florida, but you just don't know. And you know what you have with Smith. And I know Chris has been anti-Warhop just as long as we have. This thing about a lot of things, I should say, a lot of people, including us, what sort of gets under our skin about Donovan Smith is he tends to not play to the whistle. Mm-hmm. Sort of give up on plays a little early because, the ball's already supposed to be released, or the running back's not going to cut to my side of the field. So, I did what I was supposed to do with my guy, and now I'm sort of shutting it down and the whistle hasn't blown yet, and sometimes it comes back to bite him in the butt. Bruce Arians has said many a times that sort of effort is not going to play.
Right.
So, I am looking forward to seeing the type of player Donovan Smith may or may not become under the style of coaching that Bruce Arians brings.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. I know this has been a hill that Chris is going to die on, I think, this offseason. I really do. I know that this is sort of his thing, and I'm glad for him to have that voice and voice that opinion. And he's got
He's not wrong.
His points are not unwarranted. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get. It's not unwarranted. It's just the reality of it. Donovan Smith is going to be back. Just accept it. He's going to be back, and it's probably the best thing, that he can do. And besides, and I've been saying this. Listen, if the best ability truly is availability, then Donovan Smith gets his contract just based on that. 64 out of 64 games he started, and he's played through it and missed very few snaps in those 64 games. So, at least he's out there. And, he's blown a few coverages and damn near got Jameis killed on a few of them. So, again, what's the old saying? I think this might be the theme of our year this year, Ren, is I think last year we kept hearing "in light we trust." I think this year it's got to be "in Bruce we trust." Right. It's if this is where we say we're going, all right, ride or die, we're in it. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, BA or bust, man.
Exactly, BA or bust. I like that. Put that. That's our next. That's going to be on our t-shirts this year. BA or bust.
Yeah, if it doesn't work with this guy, you got to talk. It is rebuild time.
Right. Somebody make stickers. Copyright that. Rendax at the Pewtercast 2019. BA or bust. All right, number 2. Chris goes on. He says D-Jax definitely has to go. Let me back up. He did send this a couple of weeks ago. So
yes,
this is before today's news and before our earlier conversation. D-Jax definitely has to go. If I am the Bucs, I'm giving Gruden a call mainly because he likes veterans like D-Jax, but would fit well in his offense. Plus, he could get at least a 4th rounder for him and would be a win for both sides. D-Jax has worn out his welcome and made it clear he doesn't want to be here. I truly don't think BA is trying to repair or just doing his due diligence. It's just coach speak. The relationships between D-Jax and Jameis Winston can't be repaired.
Trade him for John Ross, straight up. That's my solution.
There you go.
Arians gets a speed guy, and we get out under a $10 million contract.
I would say just release him. I don't care about John Ross. So, but it's I don't know. I am skeptical, Chris, that the relationship could be repaired. I don't want to say can't, but I am definitely very, very skeptical. It worn out his welcome for sure. He hasn't done anything to endear himself to fans, but you know what will endear him to fans, Ren?
Who?
Deshaun Jackson. You know what will endear him to fans? If he goes out there and catches some damn balls and puts it in the end zone. We'll love him then.
Yeah.
But not until then. All right, number 3. He closes up his email. He says, this defense has been so bad under Mike Smith, I wouldn't be surprised if that whole entire side gets blown up. I think outside of the rookies, the only ones who are safe are JPP and Levante David. This coaching staff needs to evaluate it thoroughly. They need to have the players who have the mentality to attack and play physical. Last thing is that I'm tired of this narrative that the defense got better without Quan. The defense got better because Mike Smith wasn't here anymore, not because Quan wasn't here anymore. And someone keeps pushing this narrative, and it's just laughable. Overall, I think we're in for an interesting offseason, free agency, and draft. Do you think we'll see more than a 30% turnover that Cutter always talked about? Chris from Virginia. Sent from my iPhone.
A 30% turnover at the bottom of the roster, probably.
Right.
But those are your non-starters. Those are most of your special teams guys.
The guys playing in the Alliance.
No. But like Devontae Bond might not be back. Javian Elliott might not be back. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like you can name some guys that aren't going to be back. This thing with with Quan and the defense got better without him. I mean, one, he played 2 quarters under Duffner before he got blew out his ACL.
Was it that game that Duffner came in? That was the game that he blew out his ACL in?
Yeah, Browns game. Yeah, so he didn't, and he's having probably his best game of the year.
Right? Yeah, he was.
He really was. Then he blows out his ACL. So now Duffner's coaching, and the Bucs defense gives up about a touchdown less per game in points, and Quan's not there. So you can correlate the two and saying, Quan, is Quan Alexander really that good? Because the defense got better without him. Well, okay. Mm-hmm. The defense also got better without a lot of guys. So it was just it's all right. It came from Lee DeKemper, from Joe Bucs fan.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever listened to this pod long enough, I'm not his biggest fan. I find him entertaining, but when he says stuff that doesn't make any sense to me and to others, and then he repeats it sort of like podcast after podcast after podcast, eventually I feel like I just have to say something. And sometimes when I say something, it comes out mean because I'm just that type of person. I apologize. I'm still working on it. It's just when I find something that ridiculous and stupid and you don't back off of it, I tend to get fired up about it. So without being mean, it's lazy analysis. Now, I do agree with Lee DeKemper that Quan Alexander isn't the Greek god of linebackers that Bucs fan on social media you seem to find Bucs fans believe he is.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something we've talked about. We started talking about it the middle of last year, or even before that,
preseason last year.
Yeah, before he got hurt.
Yep.
We talked about how he guesses in run gap fits. We talk about how he's really not that good of a coverage linebacker.
Right.
When he gets up against the elites in the league, he gets toasted in coverage, bad. Like he just can't keep up with them. Put Alvin Kamara on him, toast.
Right.
Put David Johnson on him, toast. So I understand where Lee's coming from, but making the correlation that the defense got better after he went out when there was a coaching change the same week because the guy got fired 5 games into the season because his defense was historically bad. They're on pace to be the worst scoring defense ever in NFL history, and you change coaches and make a simpler plan, and then that, I think most people, and I think he knows it too. I don't know if he likes saying stuff like this or whatever, but yes, Chris, I'm with you. Bucs fans are with you. Don't worry about it. Don't let him get you fired up about this. It's just it's silly. It doesn't make any sense. It's one of those things when you hear coaches say you can make statistics say whatever you want, this is kind of what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You can point to this and go, well, A plus B equals C.
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Yeah. Honestly,
both these things are true. Quan Alexander went out, didn't play anymore, and the defense got better. Both those things can't be true without Quan Alexander being the reason why the defense got better.
Right. And this seems to be one of those things that I would expect from certain members of the media who would put out a statistic like that and say, oh, number of games Quan played in, here's what they did. Number of games, know what they did after Quan left, here's what they did. And they just put it out there, very clearly making an inference that one is a causation of the other. And then when you call them on it, it's like, I didn't say that one caused the other. I just put those numbers out there.
It's just a fact.
It's just fact. It's just what's out there. It's whatever. Children. And you're like, yeah, you're making a point though. So shut up and get off, get off my team because it's bullshit. Media, whatever. And you're hiding behind this thing of being unbiased and not whatever. No, you are biased. You're just antagonistic to the team. You are biased. So shut it. Anyway, if you can't tell how I feel about when people do stuff like that.
Brett.
And I'm not just talking about local guys because I see it from national guys do it too. Anyway.
Bet you are talking about local guys.
Anyway. That's the problem. The defense did get better when Quan got hurt, but not because Quan got hurt. Imagine what could have happened had Quan stayed actually healthy. Yeah. And the fact is, we don't know. We don't know because you can't go back and change the timeline. The only thing I will say to Chris's point here about the defense getting completely blown up, I think when you really look at the defense, and this is where I go back to what I was saying earlier in the last couple of segments, Ren, I don't feel like I really fully understand this team right now because I'm not sure what we actually have versus what coaching was. Think of the defensive line. And okay, so JPP is pretty good. Gerald McCoy is good, but his production hasn't been there. Vita Vea's coming out as a rookie. turned on in the last half of the season. We'll see if that can continue. Noah Spence disappeared. We thought he was going to be great for a while, but no, he's nothing. Will Golston, they signed him to a big contract after having a pretty good year, and he hasn't done anything the last couple of years. And the free agents we brought in haven't done anything. We could cut them all and not feel a difference, right? So that's gone. All right, well, the linebacking core after that, you've already brought up, it's completely decimated. Mm-hmm. Right. And possibly. And, you know, there's some speculation, some stupid, and it's what made me laugh of that Levante David might be being moved.
Oh, I didn't
off this team. Oh my God. It's dumb. But I mean, right now, Levante David and Riley Bulla are like our two guys. We have like that's it, right? Okay, so let's move back to cornerback. We got Vernon Hargreaves coming off of a season-ending injury last year. You got Carlton Davis, who had a decent year, but he didn't sizzle. Mm-mm. He didn't light it up.
Didn't splash.
Yeah, he just didn't suck the entire year. MJ Stewart, who did kind of suck the entire year, and we found out how non-athletic he really was. And then you move back to our safety position, which just got so riddled with injury. I think at some point we were pulling the guy out of the stands selling hot dogs to play safety for us.
Yeah, he was not good, by the way.
So, do what?
He was not good.
No, but man, could he sling some hot dogs. Anyway, so to talk about this whole defensive side getting blown up, it seems to me like there's a lot of work to be done on the defense.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll get blown up as in like all these guys are going to get released. I think there's a lot of upgrades. Like you could upgrade a lot of spots.
Yeah.
But the guys that are there are sort of set. We talked about safety last show. You got Evans, Moorhead, now Stewart. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Okay, right. Bring in a veteran. Got it. No problem. There's your four safeties. Cornerback, you talk about Davis, Hargraves, Ryan Smith, and that's about it. There's like the guys we picked up like Shaw and I can't even remember the other guy's name, but they might go, yeah, but I guarantee you Vernon and Carlton Davis are going to be on the team.
Right.
They're not going anywhere. Are we going to bring people in? Yeah, they got to. Linebackers, are we going to bring people in? Probably, but maybe not. Maybe, Kendall Beckwith does come back and his ankle ends up being fine. He ends up being Kendall Beckwith he was his rookie year.
Sure.
Maybe Quan Alexander tests the market and does come back. Well, all of a sudden we're good again.
And Jack Sitchie's back.
And you got Jack Sitchie's back. Right. And you got Riley Bulla. And maybe they sign Kevin Minter back to a 1-year deal, who played with Bruce Arians in Arizona.
Yeah.
Then you go to the defensive line. Well, you're not really blowing it up to replace anybody.
Right. Because we're still going to have Nassib, Gerald McCoy, Vita Vea, and JPP. That's your starting line right there.
Yeah. Okay. So if you release Bo Allen or Mitch Unrein, like Mitch Unrein might be just an injury release. Mm-hmm. Bo Allen, you might want to let go because now that Vita Vea is there and you got Gerald McCoy and you draft somebody, now you really don't need to have his salary.
Right.
So it's not about blowing up. It's just more about upgrading. Blowing up is just like, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone. No one's going anywhere.
Right.
It's just more of like with these injuries and with players shuffling around, there's holes that need to be filled, I think, more than they need to just like replace everybody.
All right. Final email of the night, Ren, comes to us from our good buddy, Alex. He says this: we pay Djax $10 million. Would you prefer to pay Adam Humphries $10 million and cut Djax? Or is $10 million just too high for a slot receiver? Could this be the year Bobo Wilson takes a bigger role? That's a name we haven't talked about at all in this whole conversation.
So let me understand this. He's saying cut Djax and give the $10 million that we own Djax, give to Adam Humphries.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
or is $10 million just too high for a slot receiver? We use that somewhere else, and Bobo Wilson steps in and becomes the new guy.
On some teams, $10 million is not too much for a slot receiver. Very few teams, but you only need really 2 targets, and a running game to make an offense go in the NFL.
We established that we have 4 without the slot receiver.
Exactly. So, yes, $10 million is too much. Plus, that won't work because Adam Humphries is going to take a 1-year, $10 million deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have, it's got to be at least a 3-year deal at minimum. And then now you're paying Adam Humphries $30 million. And I don't even know if he'd take that, to be honest. He probably would. I would. So, yes, it's too much to pay the slot receiver because we have so many targets. So with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and O.J. Howard, and you can toss in Cram Brate there, and then whoever the third receiver ends up being. And, a lot of people keep forgetting about Justin Watson. Like, Justin Watson's a tall guy, and he's fast. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a lot faster than people. Like, he's fast for a wide receiver. He's fast. He's a faster guy. Can he stretch the field like Deshaun Jackson? No. But he'll have but he's faster than Mike Evans, and he's faster than Chris Godwin. And we knew how high Jason Light was on him last year. Mm-hmm. It just took some injuries for him to finally, get activated. And he got in some games. I think they threw him one pass that I can remember. I don't know if he caught it or not. But the slot receiver with this many, sort of like grade A targets is not a big deal. And now that the Buccaneers are sort of they can't just sign whoever they want to, like last year we had like $90 million in cap space, now we don't. So you have it's not that they can't do it, but you have to be a little more careful about pick and choose where you spend the money. And I don't think, your fourth, possibly fifth best target on the team is somewhere where you spend $10 million or even $9 million on.
Does that hold true regardless if it's Adam Humphries making that $10 million or Deshaun Jackson making that $10 million? Because it's still a fifth receiver, a fifth person receiving the ball.
Oh, I would say Deshaun Jackson probably bumps up to the top three.
Well, sure, but we still have five people receiving the ball. Like, we could do without him.
But if you have Hump, he's the fifth guy.
Right.
Right. Or fourth. You can make an argument for fourth. You have Deshaun Jackson. He's the second guy, maybe third.
Right.
Because it goes Evans, and then you decide, how they're going to use Howard or not. Mm-hmm. So, Deshaun Jackson is, he's still more dangerous, and I would want the ball in his hands more than I would Chris Godwin. As far as target-wise, progression-wise to the play, like I'm looking Evans, Jackson, and then Howard or Godwin, depending on, the way the route tree's set up. Mm-hmm. With Humphries in there, I'm like Evans, OJ,
right,
Godwin, running back, dump off,
right,
Humphries. And
assuming that Cameron Brate is better, the hip surgery went well this offseason, and he's playing his normal self, he's back to that safety blanket role.
Yeah.
For Jameis. So I get it. All right, Ren. Well, that is it for emails for tonight. I'd like to say,
all right.
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks to everybody who sent in those emails. And if you have thoughts on anything that we have discussed, anything you heard from the Combine, from the interviews with Bruce Arians, with Jason Light, anything that's happened here over the next couple of days at the Combine, or thoughts on free agency, or really anything at all having to do with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or not. If you see a good movie you want to email us about, that'd be kind of weird, but we'll take it. You can email us to thepewtercast@gmail.com. We will make sure that we do get to those on a future episode of the show. And you guys make sure you stay tuned to us right here at the Pewtercast, because we've got your coverage all season long, all off season long, coming to you about every 2 weeks, Ren. Probably a little bit faster than that. We've got a special thing Ren mentioned earlier in the show. Next week coming up, a little sit down that we and about 3,000 people. It's not 3,000 people, Ren. It'd be maybe 1,000 if they all show up.
How do you know?
Somewhere around there. Just based on these events, previous events leading into this. It'd be about 1,000. That's my guess. That's a guess. But either way, it's not exclusive. It's my point.
It's not an exclusive sit-down.
Right. But you're probably also not getting much media coverage of this event either. So we will be there and let you guys know about what happens there and anything that comes out. But also free agencies coming up. We have the draft coming up. Thank you to Ben Solak of thedraftnetwork.com for coming on the show tonight. You guys make sure you go check out their mock draft machine and all the work that they have going on out there. Ren, closing out the show. Why don't you tell the folks out there where they can find you on the internet?
Best way is to find me on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football. Man, it felt good to talk some Bucs ball, man.
It did.
Get some emails out there. This is my comfy zone. This is my sauna. This is my hot tub.
Yeah. Apollo's is fun, but this is funner because that's good English.
It's the more funnest.
It's the most funner. If you guys want to get in touch with me, you can find me at Brent Allen Live on Instagram and on Twitter. And if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do that on Twitter at the Pewtercast or on Facebook.com/Pewtercast. And like we said, you can always email the show to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Like I said, we'll be back with you guys real soon, so you make sure you stay locked in. We also will be coming at you Sunday nights live, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, talking about the Orlando Apollos, the Alliance Football League. We're going into week 4, so you guys watch that game. We're playing the Salt Lake City Stallions, so that'll be fun. And hey, listen, the Apollos are on a roll. They're 3-0 right now in the league, so you guys can join us for that, or certainly catch that on the podcast feed. But other than that, we'll see you guys next week, actually, as it were. I can guarantee you a show next week. And until then, guys, we'll close the show out as always. Go Bucs.